The legendary Rembrandt you've studied in art history class conceals the complex man behind the masterpieces. Who was this artist whose life was riddled with contradiction and mystery? What if I told you that the very struggles that nearly destroyed Rembrandt, bankruptcy and personal tragedy, were precisely what made his paintings revolutionary? These adversities transformed his vision, infusing his work with unprecedented emotional depth. The secrets I'm about to reveal will forever change how you see his art, showing how his darkest moments evolved into artistic brilliance that continues to resonate with viewers today. Financial collapse. The master who died penniless. Behind Rembrandt's masterpieces lies a startling financial tragedy that few discuss. Though celebrated throughout Amsterdam and beyond during the 1630s and 40s, the Dutch master was simultaneously spiraling into catastrophic debt. At the very peak of his fame, when wealthy patrons competed for his portraits, Rembrandt was making financial decisions that would ultimately destroy his security. Like a collector whose passion becomes his prison, Rembrandt squandered his fortune on rare paintings, exotic objects, and classical antiquities, all while making disastrous real estate investments. By 1656, creditors forced him into bankruptcy, and officials methodically catalogued his possessions. His grand Briestraat residence was auctioned like a fallen monarch's throne, alongside his cherished printing plates, for mere fractions of their worth. Yet from these financial ashes arose artistic rebirth. No longer bound by wealthy patrons' expectations, Rembrandt transformed his style, abandoning ornate precision for raw emotional honesty, trading golden tones for somber palettes that revealed deeper human truths. Stereo blindness, seeing the world in two dimensions. While Rembrandt's style evolved dramatically after his financial collapse, a surprising physical explanation may underlie his revolutionary approach to portraiture. When examining his self-portraits throughout his career, something peculiar emerges. One eye consistently gazes directly at the viewer, while the other drifts slightly away. This pattern appears in nearly all of the 90-plus self-portraits he created. Vision scientists at Harvard and Neuroscience Research Australia have studied this phenomenon extensively. Their analysis reveals Rembrandt likely had strabismus, specifically exotropia, where one eye turns outward. This condition eliminates stereoscopic vision, the ability to perceive depth by combining images from both eyes. While most of us see in 3D, Rembrandt likely perceived the world as essentially flat, similar to viewing a photograph rather than experiencing immersive three-dimensional space. What might seem like a limitation became his greatest strength. Lacking natural depth perception, Rembrandt developed extraordinary techniques to create the illusion of three-dimensionality on canvas. His signature chiaroscuro, those dramatic contrasts between light and shadow, wasn't merely aesthetic choice, but a practical solution to represent depth. In paintings like Self-Portrait with Beret, he uses layered paint to physically build up highlights, creating tactile dimensionality. This unique visual processing directly informed his revolutionary artistic techniques. Dr. Margaret Livingstone, the Harvard neurobiologist who pioneered this research, suggests that artists with stereo blindness may be better at translating 3D scenes into 2D representations because they're already seeing the world that way. Similar visual conditions have been identified in other master painters, including Leonardo da Vinci, suggesting this visual limitation might actually confer advantages for representational art. Hidden codes, the secret language in Rembrandt's canvases. Rembrandt's unique vision helped him translate three-dimensional reality onto two-dimensional canvas, but he also embedded an entirely different dimension within his paintings. Hidden in plain sight for centuries, intricate messages have silently waited for viewers sophisticated enough to recognize them. Like keys unlocking hidden chambers of meaning, Rembrandt's encodings transcend mere decoration. In Belshazzar's Feast, scholar Michael Zell identified accurate Hebrew inscriptions spelling Mene, Mene, Tekel, Uparsin. Advanced imaging has since revealed microscopic symbols in the Night Watch, visible only under infrared light, and Kabbalistic patterns throughout the Prodigal Son. His collaboration with Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel granted access to sacred Jewish manuscripts typically forbidden to outsiders. In 17th-century Amsterdam, These visual elements transformed his canvases into multi-layered texts, functioning simultaneously as beautiful paintings for casual viewers and profound spiritual communications for the initiated. Personal tragedies, creating through grief. The philosophical ideas about mortality that Rembrandt encoded in his paintings weren't mere intellectual exercises. They emerged from devastating personal experience. Between 1635 and 1663, death became Rembrandt's constant companion as he buried nearly everyone he loved. His first 3 children died in infancy, and in 1642, his beloved wife Saskia died of tuberculosis at 29, leaving him alone with their infant son Titus. This cascade of losses transformed both the man and his art. The vibrant, golden-hued portraits of his early career, like his 1634 Flora, depicting Saskia as the goddess of spring, gave way to works of profound emotional depth. His palette darkened considerably after Saskia's death. His brushwork loosened, becoming more expressive of inner turmoil. In Bathsheba at her bath, 1654, which used his companion Hendrickje as model, Rembrandt captured a woman torn between duty and desire, reflecting his own understanding of moral struggle. Later, when Titus died at only 27, Rembrandt painted The Return of the Prodigal Son, embodying a father's unconditional love through illuminated hands, a masterwork born from his intimate knowledge of loss. Art collection obsession, the museum in his home. Beyond his emotional connection to his art, Rembrandt transformed his Amsterdam home into something extraordinary, an art library without walls housing over 8,000 objects from across the globe. The upper floors of his residence became a labyrinth of treasures few contemporaries could comprehend. His collection featured Italian master drawings, rare seashells, Roman busts, Mughal paintings, and even a stuffed dodo bird. These weren't merely decorative possessions, but practical tools for his compositions. The helmet in Man in Armor came directly from his military artifacts. The golden vessel in Belshazzar's feast was modeled after an Ottoman piece in his collection. This microcosm of the known world allowed Rembrandt to achieve unprecedented authenticity in his work, embodying the same curiosity that drove his artistic innovation across cultures and time. Self-portrait documentation, the first visual autobiography. That same insatiable curiosity that built Rembrandt's vast collection turned inward in a revolutionary way. No artist before him had ever documented their own face with such persistence and honesty. These self-portraits, far from mere convenient exercises, formed a deliberate visual diary spanning nearly 4 decades. His earliest 1620s works show a young artist mastering technique, light dancing across expressions, shadows creating drama. Then transformation begins. By his 30s, we find him costumed as successful gentleman, armored soldier, even biblical figure. Not just displaying skill, but exploring identity itself. What truly sets these works apart is their emotional journey. As art historian Gary Schwartz noted, Rembrandt's self-portraits constitute the most searching self-examination in the history of art before the modern era. The youthful swagger gradually yields to something profound. His final 1669 self-portrait reveals a face weathered by age and hardship, yet possessing remarkable inner strength. Through brush and paint, Rembrandt documented his evolution from ambitious youth to reflective elder, creating what Professor Simon Schama called the most sustained, unsparing survey of the self in Western art. Controversial studio practices, the Rembrandt factory. While those self-portraits undoubtedly came from Rembrandt's hand, the Rembrandt Research Project has revealed a startling truth about his wider body of work. Art historian Ernst van de Wettering explains, what we now call a Rembrandt often emerged from what was essentially a production studio with multiple hands at work. Documentary evidence confirms this collaborative approach. Contracts distinguish between works painted entirely by Rembrandt versus those he merely supervised. Technical analysis reveals paintings where the master executed the faces while assistants completed backgrounds. Much like today's creative agencies, Rembrandt's studio functioned as a workshop with specialists handling different elements. Ferdinand Bol's early works so closely mimicked Rembrandt that experts struggle to differentiate them without technical analysis. Gerrit Dou spent 3 years grinding pigments before applying a single brushstroke. This wasn't unusual. Rubens ran a similar art factory in Antwerp. Art historian Svetlana Alpers notes, the modern concept of authenticity would have seemed foreign to 17th century artists, who understood workshop production as standard practice. Record-breaking sales, the priceless master. The financial irony of Rembrandt's legacy is almost cruel. After death, his works languished in relative obscurity for nearly a century, selling for modest sums that wouldn't have made a dent in his lifetime debts. By the late 18th century, as artistic tastes evolved, collectors began rediscovering his genius, slowly driving prices upward. Like alchemists turning lead into gold, history transformed Rembrandt's financial failure into extraordinary wealth. Portrait of a Man with Arms Akimbo, auctioned for $33.2 million in 2009, while in 2015, 2 wedding portraits sold for $180 million. Authentication controversies create their own market dynamics. When Portrait of a Young Woman was authenticated, its value increased tenfold overnight. The Rijksmuseum's Night Watch alone attracts 2 million visitors annually, generating $30 million. As economist Claire McAndrew notes, today's collectors aren't merely buying canvas. They're purchasing cultural immortality, the ultimate validation for an artist who died in poverty. Jewish community connections, the outsider among outsiders. Cultural immortality might be what collectors purchase today, but during his lifetime, Rembrandt sought something far more profound through his unusual alliance with Amsterdam's Jewish community. In an era when Jews throughout Europe faced segregation, Rembrandt moved into Amsterdam's Jewish quarter in 1639, becoming an outsider among outsiders. Unlike contemporaries who portrayed Jews with anti-Semitic stereotypes, Rembrandt captured their humanity authentically. His Abraham Entertaining the Angels depicts ritual hand-washing exactly as practiced in Sephardic tradition. When creating Moses breaking the tablets, he ensured accurate Hebrew script through first-hand observation of ceremonial objects. This relationship wasn't one-sided. Records show Jewish patrons like Samuel Mendes de Sola commissioned works, providing crucial support during Rembrandt's financial troubles. An interdependent relationship that transcended religious boundaries when Amsterdam's elite had turned away. Eccentric behavior, the monkey portrait scandal. Rembrandt's unconventional artistic choices sometimes led to extraordinary social consequences. In 1651, a wealthy Amsterdam merchant family commissioned what they assumed would be a conventional portrait of their daughter. When Rembrandt unveiled his composition, they were utterly scandalized. Their young heiress posed formally alongside her pet monkey, with the animal rendered in equally meticulous detail. This defiant choice exemplified his commitment to truth over flattery. Unlike contemporaries who idealized their subjects, smoothing wrinkles, elongating figures, and enhancing features, Rembrandt insisted on capturing what he saw. He painted the elderly with their sagging skin, merchants with calculating expressions, and women with their actual proportions rather than fashionable exaggerations. This principle ultimately cost him Amsterdam's elite patronage. By the 1650s, fashionable patrons preferred artists like Bartholomeus van der Helst, while Rembrandt continued documenting even his own aging face with unflinching honesty. Through these 10 secrets, we discover a Rembrandt far more fascinating than the mythologized genius often portrayed in art history. His revolutionary techniques were adaptations to personal circumstances, from possible stereo blindness to financial collapse. His suffering transformed into emotional depth across his canvas. Each brushstroke tells a story of survival. His self-portraits form a visual diary documenting evolving consciousness, while his religious scenes express deeply personal meditations on human frailty and divine mercy. Rembrandt embodied remarkable paradox. An artist who died in obscurity yet achieved immortality, whose losses enabled artistic freedom, whose tragedies deepened his empathy. In every impasto highlight and shadowed face, we find both the celebrated master and the struggling man, inseparable and eternal.